And that was when after they picked my scale off my head.
We just were obviously incredibly worried because we didn't know what was going to happen and felt very sad for her, really, because she didn't look very nice.
Genes that defy everything we know about the human body. Across generations, these families have carried mutations so rare they look impossible.
Believe it or not, there's a boy in Guangxi Autonomous Region who has the ability to see clearly in the dark.
Children born with the faces of the aged. Men whose skin grows fur like wolves.
I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. I fear no evil.
Women who feel no pain at all. Science can explain the genes, but not the mystery behind them.
I'm a mermaid!
These are 15 families whose DNA rewrote the rules of what it means to be human. Shiloh Pepin. You ever hear a story that sounds like a fairy tale until you realize it's painfully real? That's Shiloh Pepin's story.
Shiloh Pepin is the world's only living mermaid.
For most people, mermaid means fantasy, myth, something that lives in stories, not hospitals. But when the world met Shiloh, all that changed. She wasn't a creature from legend. She was a little girl from Maine who defied every rule of medicine just by breathing. Born in Kennebunkport, her legs were fused together from birth, giving her body a fish-like shape that left doctors stunned. They called it mermaid syndrome. Most babies with it don't live past a few days. Shiloh, she didn't just live, she fought. Her parents, Leslie and Elmer Pepin, knew the odds. They heard the warnings, the predictions, the heartbreak waiting around the corner. But they didn't turn away. They chose love over fear. They chose life over statistics. Still, what made Shiloh's condition dangerous wasn't just what you could see. It was everything you couldn't. She was born without a bladder, uterus, rectum, most of her intestines, and had only fragments of kidneys and ovaries.
She had no rectum, no genitalia, no uterus, no bladder, only 6 inches of large colon, and a quarter of a kidney.
On paper, she shouldn't have survived. But Shiloh wasn't built for paper. By age 2, she'd already gone through her first kidney transplant. And that was just the beginning. Over 150 surgeries later, she wasn't just surviving. She was living. She went to school. She laughed. She bowled with her friends. She loved her cousins. Her joy made people forget the tubes, the scars, the diagnoses. Doctors called her a miracle. Her town called her an inspiration. The world called her the real-life mermaid. And for a while, it really did feel like magic, watching a child rewrite what the human body could endure. But even miracles get tired. As she grew older, the complications grew with her. Her body began to fail, and by the age of 10, Shiloh's battle ended. She passed away from pneumonia, surrounded by love, close to home. Her parents still say her life wasn't measured in years. It was measured in strength, in light, in the way she made people feel. Because Shiloh Pepin didn't just look like a mermaid. She lived like one, rare, beautiful, and unforgettable. And the next story on this list, it's about a man whose body also stunned the world, but for a very different reason. The world called him the Elephant Man, Joseph Merrick. Imagine walking into a room and hearing people gasp, just because of the way you look. That was Joseph Merrick's life. The world called him the Elephant Man. Now, the name alone paints a picture. Long trunk, big ears, but Merrick's reality was far more tragic and human than that. His skin was thick, rough, covered in large lumps and growths that twisted his body into shapes no one could understand. He was born in Leicester, England, sometime in the early 1860s. A normal baby at first, until around age 5, when his body began to change, slowly, painfully. By 11, his mother, the one person who saw past his deformities, was gone. His father remarried, and soon Merrick was out on the streets, abandoned for looking wrong. No home, No money, no love, just the constant sting of people's stares. He started wearing a cap with a curtain to cover his face, trying to hide from the cruelty of strangers. But even that wasn't enough. The world wasn't kind to people who looked different. The rejection pushed him into silence, isolation, and hunger. Until one day, he found an escape, one that was both degrading and liberating. He joined the freak shows. The same society that rejected him now paid money to see him. That's when the name Elephant Man was born, part horror, part fascination. And suddenly, Joseph Merrick became a sensation. He toured through small towns and then London itself. People came to stare, to whisper, to point. Yet through it all, Merrick showed a gentleness that no one expected. While his body grew heavier, more twisted, his heart somehow grew lighter. As the years went by, his deformities worsened. One side of his head became so large, he couldn't even hold it up without support. His limbs were uneven, his spine bent under the weight of his own skull. But even then, he remained patient, kind, even grateful. When the circus days ended, Merrick moved into the London hospital. There, for the first time, he was treated like a man, not a monster. He built intricate models of buildings with his own hands. He read. He dreamed. He even received visits from high society, including the Princess of Wales, who spoke to him with compassion that almost moved him to tears. And though Joseph Merrick became something of a celebrity, deep down he wanted just one simple thing: to be loved. He once said he hoped to meet a blind woman someday, someone who couldn't see his face, someone who'd love him for who he truly was. That dream never came true. In 1890, Joseph Merrick was found dead in his hospital room. Cause of death? Asphyxia. Doctors believed he had tried to sleep lying down, something his heavy head made impossible, and it crushed his windpipe. To this day, no one knows exactly what caused his deformities. Some thought it was Proteus syndrome, others neurofibromatosis. DNA tests later couldn't confirm either. His remains had been handled too much over the years. But maybe the real mystery wasn't his condition. It was his strength. Because Joseph Merrick taught the world that beauty has nothing to do with symmetry, and that kindness, even in a broken body, can leave a mark stronger than fear. And if Merrick struggled to live with the body he was born in, this next family embraced theirs, extra fingers and all. Da Silva family. Some families inherit eye color or height. The De Silvas inherited an extra finger. In Sao Paulo, Brazil, this family of 14 doesn't just have 6 fingers and 6 toes. They wear them like a badge of honor. What most would call strange, they call special. Each finger is fully formed, long and functional, not just a bump beside the pinky. It's the kind of detail that turns heads and sparks curiosity wherever they go. Doctors know it as polydactyly, a rare genetic condition that appears in about 1 in every 1,000 births. But the De Silvas don't see a syndrome, they see a legacy. It all traces back to their grandfather, Assis da Silva. A lawyer and musician, he refused to let the world label him different. He wrote a book with his 6-fingered hand on the cover, and even released a song called Six. What once carried stigma became a family symbol. Now, the next generations embrace it fully. Maria, a pianist, says her extra finger helps her hit more notes. João, a goalkeeper, swears it gives him better grip. And little Guilherme, just 6 years old, says the best part is being able to hold more toys. A superpower every kid dreams of. To outsiders, it's an oddity. To them, it's identity. The De Silvas have turned what others might hide into something to celebrate. proof that difference can be power. But if an extra finger can be a gift, imagine what it's like when your entire face begins to grow bark. Dede Koswara. At first glance, you'd think he was wearing a costume. But get closer, and the truth hits harder. That's not wood on his skin. That's his skin turning into wood. Dede Koswara was born healthy in Indonesia in the early 70s. For 10 years, he lived like any other child. Then, after a small cut on his knee, strange warts began to form. They spread fast, first on his limbs, then his face, until his body looked like it was covered in tree bark. What began as a small infection turned into a nightmare. Doctors later called it epidermodysplasia verruciformis, a rare disease that triggers uncontrollable wart growth. But in his village, Dede wasn't seen as sick. He was seen as cursed. He was mocked, abandoned, and left to survive on his own. Still, he tried to live a normal life. He worked as a craftsman, married young, and had 2 children. But as the growths took over, he lost his job, his wife, and eventually his independence. A carnival owner later hired him for a traveling show, a way to make ends meet, but also a daily humiliation. Then everything changed in 2007. A video of Dede appeared online, and for the first time, the world saw him. Donations poured in. By 2008, doctors had removed 95% of the growths, nearly 6 kilograms of hardened skin. He could finally move his hands again, but the relief didn't last. The warts returned, forcing him into endless surgeries just to keep them from spreading. Despite every effort, Dede Koswara died in 2016 at the age of 44, a man whose life was consumed by the disease that turned his body into a forest of pain. And sadly, the next story is no less heartbreaking. Bayazid Hussein. He was only a baby, yet his face looked like it had seen a lifetime. When Bayazid Hussein was born in southern Bangladesh, doctors and neighbors were stunned. The child looked like an old man. His skin sagged in folds, his eyes were hollow, and his face was swollen. At just a few months old, he had the features of someone in their 70s. The cause was a rare genetic disorder called progeria, a disease that makes the body age at an extreme rate. On top of that, he also suffered from cutis laxa, a condition that left his skin loose and wrinkled. In the town of Magra, Bayazid's unusual appearance turned life into isolation. Children ran from him. Adults kept their distance. But behind the aged face was a boy with an extraordinary mind. His mother, Tripti Khatun, calls him her miracle. Brilliant, curious, and full of life, even as the world turned away. He doesn't go to school, yet spends his days tinkering, drawing, and fixing his broken toys. His father worries they can't afford the care he needs, but both parents refuse to let pity define their love for him. Bayazid may have the face of an old man, but inside he's still just a child, one who laughs, dreams, and refuses to let his reflection tell him who he is. And while his story lies in the folds of his skin, the next one shines in the color of their eyes. Mehmet and Karam Selman. At first glance, they look like any other brothers, but when you meet their eyes, you can't look away. Each boy has one blue eye and one brown, a perfect split of color that feels almost unreal. Born in Turkey, these 2 brothers live with a rare condition called heterochromia, where each eye carries a different color. Most people who have it show faint traces or partial changes, but for them, it's complete. One eye sky blue, the other deep brown, as if painted by 2 different artists. The eldest, Mehmet, once hated the way people stared. He felt different, out of place, until his younger brother was born. With the exact same eyes, From that moment, he no longer saw it as something strange, but as something shared. Their father, Suat, remembers taking Mehmet to doctors after noticing the color mismatch. Specialists warned that the blue eye might cause vision trouble someday. Yet Suat and his wife, Ezra, say they feel blessed. No one else in their family has this condition, making their boys 1 in a million. Their eyes may not match, but together, they see the world more beautifully than most. And speaking of things that defy the ordinary, wait until you see the woman whose feet point backward. Wang Fang. At first glance, you'd think she's walking the wrong way, but take a closer look, and you'll realize Wang Fang's feet don't face forward, they face backward. Born and raised in Chongqing, China, Wang grew up turning heads everywhere she went. Most people assumed she wouldn't be able to walk, let alone run. But Wang proved them all wrong. She walks, runs, and moves just like everyone else, maybe even better. Her condition is so rare that scientists still struggle to explain how she does it. But Wang never saw herself as disabled. Instead, she built a life that challenged every assumption. She works as a waitress, raises a child, and uses her platform online to inspire others to embrace what makes them different. To her, her feet aren't a flaw. They're a reminder that limits only exist if you let them. And that same unshakable spirit can be seen in the next family, who refused to let the world's mockery stop them from chasing their dreams. Parveves family. They never wanted to stand out, but their skin made sure they did. Born with albinism, the Parvez Akhtar family spent their early years wishing to blend in. Instead, they became targets of stares, whispers, and cruel jokes. 6 brothers and sisters, all with striking white hair and pale skin, growing up in a world that didn't know how to treat them. School was hard. They were bullied, isolated, and called names that cut deep. Thick, bottle-top glasses wrapped around their heads only made them more noticeable. And though they were Asian, their reflection told a different story, one that left them struggling with identity and self-worth. But out of the pain came purpose. The family decided to use their difference to make a difference, raising awareness about albinism and showing others they weren't alone. Their courage caught the world's attention when they earned a Guinness World Record in May 2021, a title they used not for fame, but for education and hope. Now, they see their albinism not as a curse, but as a rare gift. A reminder that beauty and belonging aren't defined by color. And speaking of rare, wait till you meet the next person whose story challenges everything we think we know about the human body. Linda Bannon. Most people can't imagine life without hands. Linda Bannon never had to imagine it. She was born that way. From the very start, she faced what most would call impossible. Born with Holt-Oram syndrome, a rare genetic disorder that affects the heart and upper limbs, Linda came into the world without arms. But her parents refused to shelter her or make excuses. They treated her like every other kid, and that changed everything. Linda learned to do with her feet what others did with their hands: eat, write, dress, even paint. She went to school, graduated with a degree in elementary education, and built a life on her own terms. In 2004, she married her husband, Richard. But their joy turned to fear when their baby boy, Timmy, was born with the same condition. His missing arms weren't the real concern. His heart was. Within days of birth, he was in surgery, fighting for his life. But Timmy pulled through, and just like his mom, he adapted. Today, he's an energetic kid who brushes his teeth, plays video games, and draws, all with his feet. Together, Linda and Timmy proved that strength isn't about what you have. It's about what you do with what's left. And speaking of rare abilities, The next boy's gift is something even science can barely explain. He can see in the dark. Nong Yusui. Most people struggle to see when the lights go out. For Nong Yusui, darkness is where his vision truly comes alive. Born in China, Nong's bright blue eyes glow neon green under light, just like a cat's. He can read, write, and even fill out forms in complete darkness, earning recognition from the World Record Academy as the first human with true night vision. His ability left doctors speechless. How could a child see in the dark like an animal? Scientists compared his eyes to those of nocturnal creatures, which have a special reflective layer called the tapetum lucidum. It's what lets cats' eyes shine in the night, and somehow Nong's seem to work the same way. Still, no one knows if it will last forever. His father says specialists believe he might outgrow the condition as he gets older. But for now, Nong remains one of a kind, a living mystery with eyes built for the night. And while he might have the sharpest vision on Earth, the next duo on this list holds a record for something even stranger: the largest tongues you've ever seen. Byron and Emily Schlenker. Byron Schlenker didn't plan on becoming a world record holder. His tongue did that for him. What started as a simple library trip with his daughter Emily turned into something unbelievable. While helping her with a school project, Byron flipped through a Guinness World Records book and wondered, how wide was his tongue, really? The answer shocked him. Measured by a medical professional, it stretched nearly 9 centimeters across, wider than a beer mat, 2 centimeters broader than an iPhone 6. Emily soon followed in his footsteps, or rather, tongue prints. Hers measured 7.3 centimeters, making them the only father-daughter duo with tongues so wide they had to be seen to be believed. A year later, Byron's tongue grew even wider, 8.57 centimeters, almost matching the width of an iPhone 14 Pro Max. In Syracuse, New York, he became something of a local legend. And while the Schlenker's record is hard to top, our next story flips everything upside down, literally. Claudio Oliveira. Claudio Oliveira was born in 1976 with a condition so rare it left doctors speechless. His head faces completely upside down. Doctors gave him just 24 hours to live. But Claudio didn't just survive. He rewrote the script of what survival looks like. Born with arthrogryposis multiplex congenita, his limbs were twisted, his muscles weak, and his head turned backward. Yet through the care of his mother, he grew up refusing pity and defying every expectation. Instead of hiding, he studied. Instead of surrendering, he worked. Claudio graduated from college, became a professional accountant, and later a motivational speaker who traveled the world inspiring thousands. His story isn't one of tragedy, it's one of defiance, because sometimes the world may turn you upside down, but if you're Claudio Oliveira, that's exactly how you stand tall. Harnaam Kaur. She spent years trying to hide what made her different, but one day Harnaam Kaur decided she'd had enough. Born in Slough, England in 1990, Harnaam was diagnosed with polycystic ovary syndrome at just 12. The condition caused thick facial hair to grow, something no young girl was ever prepared for. For years, she fought it. Razors, wax, tears. Nothing could stop it from coming back. And every time it did, so did the stares, the laughter, and the feeling that she'd never fit in. But instead of breaking her, it built her. Harnaam stopped hiding. She let her beard grow and began to own it. That bold choice would change her life forever. In 2016, she became the first woman with a beard to walk the runway at London Fashion Week, transforming what once brought shame into a symbol of power. Today, Harnaam Kaur is a model, a speaker, and a voice for self-acceptance. Proof that beauty doesn't need to fit the mold. Sometimes it shatters it. Tress Johnson. When Brandy and Joshua Johnson welcomed their son into the world, nothing could have prepared them for what they saw. Little Tress was born with a rare condition so unusual that most doctors only ever read about it in textbooks. His head was misshapen, his nostrils split in two, and he suffered from constant seizures. The diagnosis? Diprosopus, the Greek word for two-faced. Caused by a mutation in what scientists call the sonic hedgehog gene, the disorder is so rare that only a few dozen cases have ever been recorded. Almost all end before birth. But Tress was different. He survived and kept surviving, defying every medical prediction stacked against him. Growing up in Missouri, Tress's life wasn't easy. He endured countless surgeries and up to 400 seizures a day. But through it all, his parents never gave up. They fought for him, cared for him, and stood proudly beside him, even when strangers hurled cruel words no parent should ever hear. Today, Tress is a teenager. He laughs, he loves, and he's proof that life doesn't have to look perfect to be meaningful. His story isn't one of pity. It's one of strength, love, and the power of acceptance. Gomez family. They called them monsters. Some whispered werewolves, but in a small town in northwest Mexico, the Aceves family wasn't living out a legend. They were living through it. Their faces, arms, and torsos were blanketed in thick, dark hair, a rare genetic condition that made 98% of the men in their bloodline look more beast than human. The women weren't spared either, their skin covered in a softer layer that still drew stares wherever they went. What the world saw as strange, the family simply called life. Growing up, they faced taunts, fear, and isolation. Neighbors turned away. Friends were few. Yet their story took a cruel twist when their difference became a spectacle. Chuy Aceves and his cousins were signed to traveling circuses as the Wolf Boys, locked in cages and put on display like living curiosities. But behind the fur and the flashing lights were ordinary hearts, ones that learned to turn shame into pride. Today, the Aceves family is known not for what they were called, but for what they've become. The hairiest family in the world, and living proof that no label can define a person's worth. Science still can't fully explain their condition, only that it's passed through the X chromosome, an unbreakable family bond written in their very DNA. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.